hopeless. You can't see it, you can't eat it, you can't scoop it into a heap, you can't even make baskets out of it. But it's there all right, and the faster you go, the more it fights back. This plane was designed to fight wars. But if we slow the film down, we can see that the biggest battle it'll ever face is with the sky. We look at our invisible enemy.
Oh my God!
We'll meet the people who try to tame the air. And people who've mastered it. We'll also find out what life is like without it at 35,000 feet.
You don't look like you care.
But our fight with the air begins with skiing. This, though, is speed skiing. And what the participants do is scour the globe for the straightest, steepest bit of mountain they can find, and then they build an even steeper bit on the top.
There are about 200 speed skiers in the world. About 5 of us are qualified to go off that tower.
Now that is what a scientist would call really very steep indeed. Any steeper and you may as well ski off the side of a skyscraper. But then it has to be that steep if you want to become the fastest man-powered man on Earth.
Speed skiing is about acceleration, because I'm going to 0 to 100 miles per hour in about 7 seconds. 0 to 150 in about 15 seconds. It's amazing intensity. The wind is trying to rip you apart.
But at 150 miles an hour, as speed skier Jeff Hamilton found out, things can go badly wrong.
Crashing on speed skis is one of the most terrifying things I can imagine. Broke 3 bones in my back, slid for 600 yards, put burn holes in my knee, burn holes in my elbow. It happens so quickly, you don't know what's going to happen. You're skiing and you're crashing.
Here we go. To try and understand the problems these speed skiers have, I thought I'd give it a go. 150 miles an hour. That's my target. 28.8 miles an hour. It's obviously broken. Realistically, I was never going to experience a speed skier's difficulties on a ski slope. So, to further my research, I ended up at this place, in Bristol. Now, we've all stuck our arm out of the window of a car that's doing 70. But what I've done is come to the wind tunnel where they tested the original model of Concorde to find out what it's like to have your whole body exposed to a headwind of 150 miles an hour.
He's not going to be a happy bunny at all.
A wind tunnel is basically a tube with a big fan at one end.
You'll end up back there.
Oh, is that why you're tying me to the ceiling?
Yeah.
Am I tied now, then?
Yeah.
That's chips if you go through that, isn't it?
That's like a cheese grate.
No, I wouldn't want to be there. I would imagine he's going to feel very, very battered.
I've got my fetching Robocop knee pads on.
And probably have breathing difficulties in before that.
Okay, boys. Yeah. You want to, turn these off or whatever it is you do? It started.
We're now at 30 miles an hour. That's classed as a strong breeze. It would be certainly a good day for flying your kite.
Heavens above, 50 miles an hour now.
At 60 miles per hour, that's classed as storm force. And that's the sort of wind speed when you start getting trees uprooted.
I can hardly move anything. Oh my God! Nice! This is unbelievable!
90 miles per hour, that's when buildings and bridges start to collapse.
This is the Stupid thing, I don't know.
At 100 miles per hour, you're looking at the average takeoff speed of a light aircraft. At 130 miles per hour, well, we're completely into the realms of the unknown.
And that was as much as I could take.
How in the name of the Holy Father do speed skiers do that? I've been undressed. I feel naked as a jaybird. How do they do it?
Well, they don't wear anoraks and John Boy Walton trousers for a kickoff. They're a bit more scientific. They come to wind tunnels to practice the perfect stance, so they don't take off. And all their equipment is specially designed to cause the least amount of drag. The helmet, for instance, is copied from one of the most aerodynamically efficient shapes in nature, a trout's head.
My helmet here is basically to protect my head, but also to provide an aerodynamic device. It begins the airflow around my body, encompassing my head and my shoulders.
The fetching suit is just 0.5 millimeter thick. It's copied from an Ann Summers catalogue.
I've built these aerodynamic special cones on the front of my grips to actually pierce the air. This fairing here keeps the airflow clean around the back of my leg. The airflow comes through and detaches cleanly off the back of the fairing.
This kit makes a huge difference. Without it, they couldn't even get up to 100 miles an hour. With it, the world's best can smash past 150. And it isn't just speed skiers who benefit from cheating the air. Everything that moves needs to be as slippery as it can be to increase speed and save fuel. And to understand just how much fuel, consider this. If you put a bicycle on the roof of your car, it'll create so much drag that on a journey from London to Scotland, it would be cheaper to send it on the train. Drive with your window down and you're throwing money away. It'll up your annual fuel bill by £150. One of the world's leading experts in aerodynamics is David Ginola, although he doesn't know it, the long-haired goof. But whether he likes it or not, it's pure science that helps him beat the world's best goalkeepers.
Qu'est-ce qu'il y a?
Oh, I was put off by his hair. What the big show-off did is make the ball spin. That makes high pressure on one side and low pressure on the other, and the ball heads for the low pressure, making it curl. into the back of the net. So what kind of shampoo do you use?
Ah, come on.
Nowadays, companies spend millions designing footballs which spin more easily and cars which are more economical. Aerodynamics has become big business. So big that they've built this place. It belongs to NASA, and it's not so much a wind tunnel as a Californian wind cathedral. Air may be light, but this thing can move 63 tons of the stuff every second. This is where the air comes in. And this is the fan that drives it. Tell you something. You wouldn't want to come in here if you've just had your hair done. That's... In fact, it's only one of the fans. There are 6 of them. However big you're thinking it is at home, really treble that. And then treble it again. It is art meeting science. And who said science couldn't be sexy? Well, I mean, I did, obviously, in physics in 1976. But I was wrong, because I was young. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, my physics teacher, I'm sorry. Physics is sexy, it was you that wasn't. It uses so much electricity, it even has its own switch at the power station. When it's running, they have to divert passing aircraft because of the turbulence it creates. This place has taught us much, but most of all, it's taught us that the best way of dealing with the air is to go where it's thin. That's why commercial jetliners fly at 35,000 feet. There's less air up there to fight, but there's also less air to breathe. Of course, that's okay, because the cabin's pressurized with its own air supply. But have you ever wondered what would happen if a window were to blow out? We're always told that if the cabin suddenly loses pressure, oxygen masks will drop down from the ceiling. We put them on, we tug the cord, and then we fit them to our children. It all sounds very orderly and serene. But I've come here to an RAF base in Bedfordshire to find out what really happens. This is a decompression chamber, and inside we've put a tray of typical airline food to see what happens when disaster strikes. Ready? Now, what happened there is that as the cabin decompressed, little bits of air trapped in the food suddenly expanded, causing it to explode. So what about the air in your body? In your lungs, in your gut, trapped underneath your fillings? What happens to that? Well, there's only one way to find out. Someone has got to go in there.
Okay, close chamber outer doors.
That's it, we're trapped in here.
We're trapped in now.
PRD checks.
Chamber altitude. All valves.
All valves are closed.
Console checks are complete.
What's that balloon for?
It's going to expand. It'll just demonstrate the air expansion. And it will expand.
So air trapped in my body, like in the food.
It will expand.
Will expand and need to come out.
I want you to be breathing out, because otherwise your lung is going to be expanding and you won't be getting rid of the air.
Check 8,000. It's like climbing Everest in one short, sharp shot. We can bang him up in 12 seconds.
Stand by.
Yes,
Stand by for
yeah.
rapid decompression.
Right.
In 5,
4, 3,
2, 1.
now. And there they go.
Air is pouring out of me.
5 seconds.
Lots of noise.
Where's all this mist come from?
That's the condensation.
15 seconds, close to 120.
Oh, this is embarrassing. I think I've just become the first presenter on British television to fart live on air.
So, I didn't explode like a yoghurt and my fillings were fine. But then they gave me a toddler toy to play with.
It's a simple children's toy.
And I really couldn't do it. With the lack of oxygen, I was dying. And do you know what? It felt good.
You don't look like you care.
Most people find it very giggly, quite a bit of fun, really. A bit like being drunk. Except with this one, there's no hangover.
And you're laughing away.
Am I really suffering from oxygen deprivation now?
Yes, you're showing the early signs.
Where does this one go?
He's not coping too well with that puzzle ball now.
What scope are you trying to put in there? Okay, you really can't do that anymore. Put your mask on now. Put your mask on.
He's being told what to do, but he's not managing to do it. He's not doing it himself.
Are you with me? You've now got oxygen restored to you.
And he's got a lovely pink colour now. That's the oxygen getting back into the system, all the increased blood flow rushing around.
I felt, I don't know how I felt. This is normal now, so if I'd have got the oxygen mask on, I'd be fine.
You'd be fine all through.
But if I hadn't got the oxygen mask on, what would have happened to me eventually?
Well, you'd have died.
Really?
Yes. You'd run out of what we call the time of useful consciousness. You weren't really capable of putting your own mask on.
No, the most embarrassing thing is I think I farted on air.
Yes, I did as well.
Really?
Don't worry about that. You could smell it, I couldn't.
So that's why fighter pilots wear masks, because of the smell. But then the odd trouser cough is the least of this guy's worries. As he approaches the speed of sound, around 700 miles an hour, shockwaves build up around the plane. You can actually hear them up to 20 miles away as a sonic boom. This is nature at its most fierce, and it can literally rip a plane apart. 60 years ago, some planes were fast enough to be nudging the sound barrier, and the battle to go through it began. Contrary to Hollywood myth, it was a two-cornered fight between an American pilot, Chuck Yeager, and a British boffin, Dennis Bancroft. Both knew about the problems of exceeding Mach 1. It was common knowledge. Shockwaves would jam the controls, and the plane would go out of control.
They were finding that with Spitfire, when it dived very fast. And they found that a number of pilots couldn't pull out and they just crashed.
So, in the war, Bancroft was asked by the British government to design a jet-powered plane that would break the sound barrier.
It was extremely powerful. You're accelerating at an embarrassing speed.
It was called the Miles 52, and things were going well for the British. But then, enter the Americans.
In the autumn of '44, we were told that if we gave them all the information we knew, in 3 weeks' time we would be going to America and they would tell us all the information that they had gathered. But after a week, we got a message through that the Pentagon would not permit anybody from England for security reasons. So the door was closed, bang. We had supplied them with all this information. We were expecting information back. We got absolutely nothing.
So the Americans nicked our research. And then the British government, for reasons that have never been explained, cancelled the Miles 52 project and confiscated all the equipment. Yeager had a clear run. He'd spent the war earning his reputation as a fighter jock. In a single day, he once shot down 5 German planes. After the war, Yeager came back to America a hero. And to reward him, they sent him here, to this featureless, bleak, windswept, dried-up lake bed in the high desert of California. He must have been pleased. But it was here that he met the Bell X-1. America's rocket-powered attempt at the sound barrier. On October the 14th, 1947, he was dropped from the belly of a bomber. And moments later, onlookers heard something no one had ever heard before. A sonic boom. Jaeger had done it. But it wasn't the rocket power that got him past Mach 1. It was how they stopped the shockwaves jamming the controls. And that was down to the X-1's clever rear wing, the horizontal stabilizer. If I could just have a minute of your time on that. Ordinarily, I wouldn't be that bothered about the back wings on a jet fighter. You see, on a normal slow plane, there's a little flap here that goes up and down. But on a supersonic plane like this Lightning, the shockwave comes barreling down the side and jams it, and then you crash and die, and it's all very ugly. Finding out that the whole wing had to move like it's doing now, that was the discovery, that was the key that got Jaeger through the sound barrier. But was it, as he claims, the Americans that thought of it?
Of course not. They hadn't got a clue about moving tailplanes. We had the actual wing being test flown on a low-speed aircraft in 1943.
He's right. This footage, taken 4 years before Jaeger broke the sound barrier, shows a British plane with a movable wing. The same thing was fitted to the Miles 52, so would it have gone faster than sound?
Without a shadow of doubt, it would have gone through the sound barrier.
Oh well, never mind, Dennis. The Americans may have punched a hole in the sound barrier.
I don't want to be too angry.
But we're the ones who go through it with style. We'd become blasé about Concorde until one of them crashed in Paris. But we shouldn't have done. Because how this plane manages the air as it screams along at 1,500 miles an hour is nothing short of mind-blowing. You have to remember that when Concorde first flew, most people's idea of high technology was a twin-tub washing machine. Pocket calculators were the size of bungalows. The Austin Allegro hadn't even been invented. And yet here was a passenger plane which could fly at more than twice the speed of sound. And I really do like the rally chopper handlebars for that authentic 70s flavour.
Yes, it's cute and cosy.
You should be sitting on space hoppers as well. Chief Concorde pilot Mike Bannister has been flying it for 20 years.
You can fly the airplane with just your fingertips, and that's a fantastic tribute to the designers to get the airplane that sophisticated and that responsive. The Americans in their space programs say that putting Concorde into service was technologically the same sort of challenge as getting man on the moon. They still fly in space, but they have people in spacesuits. We fly on the edge of space with people in lounge suits.
The biggest problem Concorde has is not the sound barrier. It's something called the thermal barrier. What little air there is at 60,000 feet causes enough friction to heat the plane up to the boiling point of water. That makes the body swell. In fact, at full speed, Concorde is a foot longer than it is on the ground. To cope, 10% of the engine's power is used to drive the air conditioning plants. Without them, the passengers would cook. Instead, though, they just sit there, flying faster than the world spins. Which means, of course, that on their way to New York, they can watch the sun rise in the west. This plane is the work of genius. It's so clever, I'm surprised the Americans haven't claimed they invented it. And before they get any funny ideas, I thought it might be a good idea to pay them a visit.
We invented everything. Without the British, you wouldn't even be here. We gave you Fleetwood Mac and Oasis and The Who and Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones and Genesis and Pink Floyd. And what did we get back in return? What did you give us? I'll tell you what you gave us. Michael Bolton. Thank you very much. How you've enriched the world with the stupefyingly dull.
Buddy. Quiet down. Very peaceful neighborhood. You've had your say. No more. You've had your warning.
We invented the police force.
That's
and
it.
we invented.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's take a ride down.
We invented the U.S. Navy. Did you know that?
Nice warm cell.
Are they handcuffs? They're British. Painful police brutality. That was one of ours. And you're going to put me in a car. A German invention, that, you know, got nothing to do with you lot. Do you know how many American components there are in Concorde?
Not interested.
Well, you should be, because I'll tell you how many there are. None! Not one! Nothing at all!
Next week, if I'm released in time, it's all about power. I'll go head-to-head with the biggest engines ever made. I'll annoy Mr. Prescott and some old ladies with my new jet bike. And I attempt to beat my own land speed record.